Am I mic'd yet? Okay, very good. Good morning. Welcome. Congratulations for making it here to the last session of this wonderful conference and for making it here on time. My name is Cecilia de Oliveira. VJ referred to me a number of times in the last couple of days as Cease. I am that person. I'm an associate dean in the Office of Digital Learning here. Our theme for this morning is digital learning for students of all ages. And we have some really special things lined up for you today in this morning time. For those of you who made it here on time, you could think of it your reward. This is going to include a very brief keynote address from our president, Rafael Reif. Then that'll be followed by a panel with hopefully four, only 3 of them are here, 4 of our extraordinary MIT students who are going to talk about the role of digital learning in their lives. And then we're going to have a break, a coffee break, and we will end with a session that is going to be put on by a group of students, high school students, from the Andover Public Schools, which is Andover is a school here in Massachusetts, up on the North Shore. They're doing something called a demonstration sandbox, and from what I understand, this involves putting 250 pounds of sand here while you're on coffee break, and then when you come back, they're going to do an interactive demonstration. So I think the morning will be fun. Before I introduce Rafael, let me just tell you a little bit about myself. I have responsibility here at MIT for 2 of MIT's signature open education programs, and that's OpenCourseWare and MITx and edX, or what people commonly think of as the MOOCs. And OpenCourseWare course was launched in 2002. We announced it in 2001. We're celebrating the 15th anniversary of that announcement this year. In 2014, the Office of Digital Learning, or 2012, after the Office of Digital Learning was formed, and a couple of years after that, Sanjay asked me to take on some responsibility for the MOOC side of things as well. So we have an open education part of the Office of Digital Learning. The most common question that I get asked when I talk with people from outside of MIT, sometimes even when I talk with faculty, the most common question I get asked is, what's the difference between MITx and edX? The second most common question is, what's the difference between OCW and MITx? And so I want to quickly just address both of these questions. I think many of you here probably know the answer, and you could stand up and tell us. Let's start with edX versus MITx. How many of you feel like you totally understand the difference between these things? I hope the people at MIT can raise their hand. Raphael? Well, edX is a nonprofit organization, number 1, that was set up by Harvard and MIT several years ago. And as Anant said yesterday, if you listen to his comments, edX, he thinks of it as a destination site. What does that mean? It's a place people go to access these MOOCs that many schools are building. edX has 8 million unique learners, 196 countries, 25 million enrollments, 1,000 courses. It's a big operation. And I sort of think of it as a theater for the delivery of all this good stuff that's being produced by universities who are members of the edX consortium. MITx, on the other hand, is an MIT initiative. And it really is a collaboration between the Office of Digital Learning here and departments and faculty around MIT who constitute course development teams. And we collaborate to develop these courses for delivery on edX. So MITx does the course development, edX does the delivery. edX is a theater. If edX is a theater, MITx consists of movies, okay? So that's the difference. edX software is also available for open source distribution, and for those who want to host their own version of an edX, you can do that, whether you want to do a private installation just within your own institution, or you want to do a regional open site that is possible. And in fact, here at MIT, we use a private version of Open edX, a locally hosted version, which we make available to faculty to do their experiments in blended learning. And that offers them a private environment where their students and their classes can take advantage of a lot of this technology we're developing. We call that residential MITx, okay? Now, what about OCW versus MITx? How many of you know the difference between those two things? Good, okay. OCW, which was, as I said, was launched in 2001, is really a publication of existing course materials. We work with faculty to take materials that they use in their courses and publish it, make it available under an open Creative Commons license on the web so anybody can use it, redistribute it. Our primary audience at the beginning for OCW were educators. And we thought those educators might want to see what MIT teaches and how we teach it. It's a relatively easy way for our faculty to share what they're doing with each other, with the world. We now have about 2,300 courses represented on the OCW site across all MIT departments. And on an ongoing basis, we're publishing about 120 new or updated courses on the website per year. We have about 1.5 million unique visitors to the site every month. And to date, we think there have been about 200 million individual people that have taken advantage of these open MIT teaching materials. MITx, on the other hand, is a much different beast. MITx is a program with a goal of reinventing education, both here and around the world. The faculty that are involved in MITx spend a lot of time thinking about how they're going to revamp their on-campus courses for an online environment, and about how to transform their own teaching here on campus using these new technologies. It is a labor-intensive process for faculty and for people who work with them. So it's a fundamentally different thing with different goals than MITx. To date, our MITx development teams have produced about 100, or have launched about 130 MOOCs on edX, and we've got another 50 that are in the pipeline, I think, for later this year. Is that right, Dana? Something like that? And approximately 3 million learners have enrolled in these MIT MOOCs to date. Many of the elements that are being developed for the MOOCs are being integrated back into MIT classrooms, as we've been talking about this week. I mentioned yesterday during the panel at the end of the day on the future of pedagogy that OCW in the last couple of years has added a new feature to our site, which we call OCW Educator. And the goal of OCW Educator is to make OCW more valuable to educators who, are, as I said, were the original audience for OCW in the first place. And we are doing that by sharing not just materials, but the perspectives of our faculty about how they teach, about the challenges they face, about how they have the problems they've had and how they've addressed those. We now have OCW Educator as an add-on to over 100 of our OCW courses, and we're going to be publishing more of these on an ongoing basis. Yesterday, for those of you who sat in on the pedagogy session, you heard Kathy Drennan talk about the clicker competitions and the research she's done to try to determine how to make clickers most effective for students. We're working with Kathy now to publish her introductory chemistry course with the materials and video lectures, but also with this information about how she uses clickers. So that's a good example of OCW Educator. The faculty are really excited about this new focus for OCW. And we think OCW Educator is going to be a really good platform in coming years to keep people around the world, as well as here at MIT, informed about how we are transforming how we teach. It will be a microphone for our faculty to actually talk about that to the world. So we welcome your feedback about this new feature. If you want to see it, you can check it out at ocw.mit.edu/educator. So thank you for that public service announcement opportunity. I now want to move into our program and just say we're very fortunate to have, for our kickoff address this morning, our President Rafael Reif. Rafael, I think, is widely acknowledged here on campus. He is the leader of all of our efforts to help shape the future of education here at MIT and the future of higher education around the world. He is the 17th president of MIT. He's been MIT president since 2012. And in his inaugural address, which I remember well under the tent outside there, he talked about the threats and opportunities he saw by the sudden rise of these very low-cost online learning alternatives. And he challenged the MIT community and the MIT faculty to begin using the campus as a lab to explore the future. This then led to the formation of not just MITx, but the launch of edX. And on the heels of that, he then launched something called the MIT Institute-wide Task Force on the Future of Higher Education. This was a large year and a half effort involving many MIT faculty to think about what the future of education was here. They issued a final report in late 2014. It's available online. If you're interested in it, just Google for it. That report has really spurred a lot of the experiments that we've been talking about this week that are going on here in the MIT campus in terms of blended learning. It also led to the announcement last year of a new MicroMasters credential, which we've also talked about here, and how groundbreaking that has been. Apart from his interest in transforming education, Rafael has done a lot of other things here at MIT during his tenure, which you can read about online, but it includes things like the Innovation Initiative. And then in 2014, MIT began work on a whole new facility called MIT.nano, which if you go down to the coffee break and you look outside and you see all this construction going on, a lot of that is related to this whole nano building effort. And the goal of that is really to accelerate research and innovation at the nano scale. Rafael, prior to being president, was the provost here at MIT, 2005 to 2012. And he, during this period of time, of course, was when the financial crisis hit. He was responsible for what MIT did to kind of stabilize itself afterwards. He has been very involved in the growth of MIT's global strategy. And as I said, he spearheaded the development of MITx and edX. And for that, he received the 2012 Tribeca Disruptive Innovation Award. So he's a creator, he's an innovator, he's an inventor, he has many patents to his name, he's written a lot of books. We're extremely fortunate to have him as our president. I think without further ado, the only other thing I'll say is that Rafael is from, you have a degree which I can't pronounce. I think it's electrical engineering, but it says Ingeniería Eléctrico.
You better beef up your Spanish.
Rafael is from Venezuela, and he graduated from a university there. And again, I won't try to pronounce it because I'll mess it up. But he has his doctorate from Stanford. Unfortunately, Rafael has to leave us right after he makes his remarks. But we're very pleased that he agreed to join us and to share a few reflections to start off our day. Please give him a warm welcome.
Very kind, thank you. Thank you, Sis, for that kind introduction. I really appreciate the opportunity to come and talk to you for a few minutes today to start your day 3. As Sis said, this whole area that you are working on is extremely important to me personally and for the institution, so I'm glad for the opportunity. And I do recognize that I am in between, just standing in the way of probably the most important part of the morning, which is listening to the student voices. So I'll try to be brief. And I say I try because each time I talk about this topic, I just take off. But I do have to be done in 10 minutes. I'll do the best I can. I do want to spend a few minutes mostly to tell you my views on why I think it's so important, the work you do. Why I think it's so important to advance innovation in teaching and learning. That's very, very critical. You are spending a great deal of time on that. And I just want to not just thank you for that, but explain to you why I think that's so important. Sis talked about MITx and edX. We launched MITx, as she said, in December 2011, and 5 months later we launched edX with Harvard. What we said then was, and I'm quoting from a report that we delivered at the time, our educational model has served us well for 150 years. But MIT believes in the power of digital learning to reshape it in important ways, and I would like to explain what that means. At the time, that announcement was received as a big deal. The media paid attention to it. And that was, to some extent, somewhat surprising, because in many ways, that announcement was just part of MIT's evolution. It's just part of how we are evolving and thinking and improving how we use educational innovation, because that's pretty much part of our DNA. I'm going to start with 1861, but I can assure you I'll be done in less than 10 minutes. When MIT started, it was actually an educational innovation at the time. You probably have read that by the mid-19th century, when MIT got founded, higher education was pretty much dominated by passive listening and memorization. That defined higher education at the time. And the MIT founder, William Barton Rogers, basically just changed that completely, turned that idea in its head. He placed unusual emphasis back then, and that has been the DNA of MIT, in learning by doing, in learning in a way that is hands-on, that is problem-solving, and that's curiosity-driven. That's extremely important, learning by doing, problem-solving, and curiosity-driven. And that was 150 plus years ago, and that's still the way we do it today. Experiential learning has been important, and using technology to educate has been what MIT has done from its very, very beginning. And that's why I mean this has been a recent story, a recent history, it's just an evolution. Now, I'm not going to tell you what happens during 150 years, but I can fast forward to 15 years ago, what Sis mentioned, which is the next evolution in that long line of changes, and that is the recognition of the power of the internet in education, and that came about with OCW, with OpenCourseWare. As Sis mentioned very briefly, OCW was launched as a proof of concept at the beginning, site with 50 courses. And as she mentioned, 15 years later, we are reaching, Sis mentioned, over 200 million learners. We have 2,300 courses. That has been just absolutely amazing. But the main point is that the turning point, the milestone decision in my mind is the following. When OCW was conceived, when the idea of putting content online for people outside MIT was conceived, we could have monetized it to generate revenue. That's a very important decision in not just in MIT's history, but in the history of how to use digital technology and technology altogether for education. We could have monetized it. But if we did that, it would have restricted education further. And that was exactly the opposite of what we want to do with education, what you are here all to do with education, not to restrict it, but to just improve the level playing field. And the decision that late President Chuck Vest made was just to make the content available for free. And that was a milestone decision, a remarkable decision, and one that even to this day and for years to come, I'll always be very proud of MIT, because that just took off and made people take off and think about education and the level playing field in different ways. With MITx, as is described, that's much more recent. But now we have not just content, but we have tutorial content. And the same thing happened. We could have monetized it, but we didn't. Again, the whole point is to level the playing field. And the tutorial content plus the online platform that you can put your content in it is all available for free for anybody, anywhere to use it. And again, the goal is to level the playing field for a world of learners. One strong belief that I have is that I don't believe in thinking or talking or referring to the smartest 1% in the world. I believe in thinking and talking and referring to the luckiest 1% in the world. Those were the opportunities. And that's a crucial point of view. And if you believe in that, then leveling the playing field, just removing luck, providing opportunities is the way to go. And that's a significant part of what drives the decisions we make, and the decisions that I think all of us collectively make to use our education tools to reach many people, again, to level the playing field. Now, MOOCs have been getting all the attention, but part of the dream, in fact, part of how MITx started was to improve the residential education model, is to improve the classroom experience. Let me tell you a little story that I don't know how well this is known. I've said it maybe in a couple of other places, but she said that before I became president, I was provost. Shortly after I became provost, this is early 2006, I had a number of faculty coming to my office to complain. I said, look, we have a problem, professors told me. The problem is that students don't come to class. We work very hard. We prepare spectacular lectures. We expect 80 or 100 students to show up, and only 20 or 30 show up. So we have a problem, and you, provost, got to do something about it. Well, it occurred to me, of course, that the lectures probably were boring, and that's why students didn't come. But I knew the faculty they were talking about. I knew them, and I knew them to be very good lecturers. So I had to look into that. And it didn't take me long to discover that the reason students didn't come to class is not because they were just sleeping or doing other things that had nothing to do with academia. Quite the contrary. At MIT, education is about classroom, labs, and team projects. And what was going on is that students were working on team projects with other students. And time came to go to class. And then they had a choice between breaking a moment in which they are getting into something very exciting and go to class, or continue their team project because the staff is an OCW anyway. And that was the reason why students were not coming to class. Well, that was completely unexpected. As he said, OCW was created for the world, for the outside world, for those who don't have access to quality content, for teachers who could use our content. It was created for the outside world because our professors are here teaching. And yet, something we did for the outside world had impact right here at MIT. So I was quick to realize that if we could provide not just the content, but tutorial content, interactive content, then the residential model and the classroom experience will change forever. And that concept, that was the beginning of what then became MITx. In less than 5 years, we have seen a huge transformation. These days, about 90% of undergraduates are taking material from MITx. So that has been a tremendous success, but more importantly, this is just the beginning, because it's a tool that how to use it is just limited by your own imagination. And I'm just delighted to see what our faculty are doing with this tool and the novel ways in which are using this new kind of Blackboard. I don't know, when was Blackboard invented? But we still use it, but this new kind of tool to help us provide a much better education. Let me close quickly to just mentioning 3 important examples of how we're using digital learning to improve education. First, the one of 3 that I want to mention quickly today. Last week, we announced a collaboration with the Abdullah Al Ghurair Foundation for Education. And this is to make STEM-focused education available for learners across the Arab world. And we're very, very proud and happy to be involved in such an important endeavor. The collaboration builds on the success of the MITx MicroMasters. And the part of the agreement includes developing 2 new MITx MicroMasters programs with the same idea. Participants, learners can take courses online, get a credential, and apply for a master's degree at MIT or elsewhere. Another important announcement we made, just a summary of what we're doing that I think is so critical in our evolution of how to use digital learning. Last winter, we launched the MIT Integrated Learning Lab initiative. We call it, this is somebody very smart created this acronym, MIT Integrated Learning Initiative, and if you read it, it says mightily. That's cool. So MIT was announced last winter. Is the first step on a cross-institute research investigation program to understand how people learn, from pre-K to 12 to high school, continuous education, to understand how we learn. And that to me is just a fascinating endeavor, just to tell you how motivated I am to get that research. My daughter is one of those people that she can sit in a classroom and listen to somebody for 90 minutes and understand and remember everything that person said. I sit for 10 minutes and I wonder, I'm gone. If some professor didn't say the most important thing in those 10 minutes, I'm gone. I didn't hear it. I'm just going somewhere else. The first 10 minutes, my imagination starts going into ideas produced by those 10 minutes, and I lose the rest of the class. So we're all learning differently. And how we can, understanding that is extremely important for us to use tools to be able to reach so many different kinds of learners. As part of that research with MIT, the PK-12 Action Group is building on a century of outreach to just bring our unique educational approach to young students and teachers. And we're doing that in collaboration, I'm very proud to say this, with the Woodrow Wilson National Fellowship Foundation that is supporting with MIT the efforts of pre-K to 12 teachers to use digital learning tools for STEM education. And finally, earlier this year in Mumbai, in India, we launched the Connected Learning Initiative, which we're referring to CLIX, or CLIX, C-L-I-X. That's with Tata Trust and the Tata Institute of Social Sciences. And that's another remarkable initiative, again, all addressing the idea of leveling the playing field. The initiative will bring high-quality science education to 1,100 schools in underserved communities in India. So that is another great program we have. I'm delighted with the idea of leveraging our technologies, developing teachers, and creating an open ecosystem for collaboration on innovation. These are just 3 recent developments, and I'm telling you, we're just beginning. This is extremely important. It's part of our mission. We need to level the playing field. We need to reach every underserved person in the world. We need to reach everybody and give everyone an opportunity for a better education, a better life. Well, I said that I had to be brief because I have to leave in a few minutes. In fact, I have to leave now. But before I go, I do want to express my deepest thanks to Sanjay Sarma, Vijay Kumar, Cisdi Oliveira, and Dick Larson, and all of their colleagues for bringing, first of all, the audience together and for the work they do. And I'm honestly, sincerely grateful for all the work you do to advance the educational values that we at MIT care so deeply about. So with that, let me just wish you a very productive morning, and thank you so very much for listening.